right, and welcome back to another Brew and Ink podcast. Today we are reviewing a spoiler-filled review, spoiler-filled of Mandalorian, episode 3 and 4 of season 2, which they're also just calling episodes 11 and 12. So if you're going by how Disney Plus is kind of listing them as chapters, it'd be chapter 11 and 12, episode 3 and 4 of season 2. And we're here with Britt.
What's up?
And we're here with Katie.
Hey there.
And obviously myself. I think I'm
obviously
here. Yes. But yeah, we're excited. We have been excited to get these episodes talked about because there's so much to talk about. I mean, it's hard to go back kind of and talk about episodes when you really just want to talk about the most recent one.
Right.
But we will promise not to spoil anything further ahead of the storyline, because at this point of the recording, there's another 3 episodes out, 2 episodes.
Another 2.
Yeah. So we won't say anything about that if you need to catch up. But this is definitely going to spoil things for episode 3 and 4. So that's your warning. You've had your chance. We are getting into it now. So this episode, I like to start with who directed it. You know, this one was done by Bryce Dallas Howard. And I think she did a great job. But you can feel the difference kind of between, you know, when Jon Favreau does it and when one of the other, I wouldn't say less known, but one of the other, what would you call them? Co-directors?
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
She actually has directed 2 of my favorites.
Yeah.
Like this one, you know, was one of my favorites. And for a number of different reasons, but also the one where they were protecting the village, the kind of the
that was the other
Seven
one she did?
Samurai version of it.
Yes, with the AT-AT.
It was Magnificent Seven, really.
Episode.
Yeah, great. So she did that one too, and I just thought that was the way she did. She did action, and she did a lot of that emotional stuff with him and the woman.
Yeah,
and the stuff with Baby Yoda. So I like. So
she does a good job.
Doing a good job.
I think she does a good job of bringing in some of the classic Star Wars stuff too. Because now that you've mentioned that was her other episode, she brought in the ATST, and in this one, not to get too far ahead, but she brings in the what is it called? The Death Squad. It's not Death either.
I don't think they were called the Death Squad, but they're the Mandalorians from the Clone Wars. I mean, she brings back
from the Clone Wars.
The Night Owls?
No, they're
the lady.
Not the Night Sisters. No, I'm pretty sure they're called the Death Squad.
It's Bo-Katan and her.
Bo-Katan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Death Watch. She brought in Death Watch.
Yeah.
So I was very excited, and they did Bo-Katan really well. Like the actress that they got to do her. I heard she was also the voice actress.
She's the voice. That's Katie Sackhoff, and she's also in Battlestar Galactica, and she's been in a couple other things. And so, yeah, she was the voice in Clone Wars, and now she plays the same character, and that's another reason why they wanted them to do the same thing with the voice actress for Ahsoka Tano, but we all know that they didn't do that. But
right.
Anyway, not to get that far ahead, but no, she was great.
Yeah. So what was your just kind of first impression, your overall of this episode, Katie? What'd you think?
I was super relieved that the baby Yoda did not eat all of the frog eggs.
Yeah.
I was so worried. Like, I'd been hearing things, and I thought, like, going into it, I thought for sure there were going to be no more frogs. But there were. And that just pleased me. I really liked the environment of this episode. You know, you have the the Mon Calamari with the cable knit sweater, and it just the thing that perpetually that I get so much enjoyment out of The Mandalorian is how lived in everything looks.
Yes.
And with the sailing vessel and everything, that like, yeah, of course the squid guys in the Mon Calamari have fishing vessels like that, and you know, it makes sense. Like in that regard, the very small nitpick I have is I wish the fish didn't look so earthly. You know, alien fish on an alien planet, right?
Right. Yeah.
But it was just a really fun episode, especially with the surprise of these new Mandalorians that he's finally found taking off their helmets. It's like, you know, what is actually going on here? I knew Bo-Katan from Clone Wars, but I've never seen Clone Wars. So it was still a surprise to me, like, you know, oh, there's some Mandalorians don't do the no helmet or the helmet no face thing, but yeah, some nice twists and turns. And
yeah, he was like, you weren't real Mandalorians. And they're like, we're from Mandalore. And he's like, oh.
Yes. So for those of us who have seen the Clone Wars, and by the way, seen all the Mandalorian stuff that was in Rebels, because there was a lot of it in there too.
Yeah.
Then that was a relief to finally get that explanation. Like, because when we were watching season 1, we're like, what do you mean he can't take off his helmet? We have several different characters where they take off their helmet all the time. And so why is it so different with him? And so to finally get that explanation, to bring that in and bring in some of these other characters, we're just, those of us who've been watching a lot of this stuff, like who know the extra material from the movies and the books and stuff, they're just doing everything right. And in a lot of that stuff where they're bringing in these characters like Bo-Katan and later Ahsoka Tano, and some of these characters that they're bringing in, it's just, they're doing it perfectly. This is what you should do. And so I love that. For us, like we were sitting there going, okay, finally we get to know why he's different. So it was cool.
Yeah. So I really liked the intro to this episode. He's like, all right, we're coming in hot. We're going to make this landing. It could be bumpy. And you're watching him and you're like, oh man, they're coming in really fast. And, you know, the ports are chattering to him like, slow down, you're coming in too fast. And he reverses thrusters and everything right above the port. And you're like, dang, he's about to pull this off. And then the engine just blows and it cartwheels into the water right next to the port. He was so close to landing and making it. But I was like, what? And then it just cuts black. It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Just like Katie said, I think the world was really interesting because we've seen on some of the cartoon shows, the world, and I guess we saw in one of the movies too, one of the prequels where they had like a water world, you know, a world that was all water, and that's a Star Wars kind of trope. But I like that they keep going back to these things that they're doing it, but they're doing it in kind of a different way. This isn't like the Mon Calamari home world. This is like this black market planet, and so you've got those creatures, or aliens, you've got those aliens that are water aliens, but you don't have the. And I agree. I like that where they bring in the different elements of a planet, or like it's a different environment, and they keep bringing in monsters, which is a very Star Wars thing to do. You're in space and all of a sudden you come up with this monster somehow, whether it's in the snow or in the water or in an asteroid or whatever. So they keep going back to some of these tropes, but they make it work. You know, it's not like it's just cheesy, at least to me. They make it work.
Yeah. So he gets into the bar, I believe it was, and he's trying to find information on where he can find the Jedi so he can bring the child, Baby Yoda, to the Jedi. And the I believe it was the bartender tells him, "Oh yeah, I know a guy."
Was a Quarine.
A Quarine.
Quarine, yeah. Yeah, I'm
okay.
the little squiddy. Yeah, I'm that's a nerd. That's a Star Wars nerd thing to know.
There you go. But yeah, so he basically tells him, we know where we can find your others like you. Because that's right, because he was asking about trying to find more Mandalorians in this episode, which confused me because wasn't he looking for Jedi, but then he was trying to find more Mandalorian.
He thought that the Mandalorians would have information on where the Jedi were.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, first he was trying to get more connected with other Mandalorians, and that was the first goal. And once he found Mandalorians, then he was starting to ask if they knew about any Jedi, because there's obviously a whole history with the Jedi he didn't know anything about. And so yeah, and the whole thing comes up again that he's got Beskar, and like we talked about in the last episode, I like the fact that they're bringing in this Beskar as a liability. Like he fought so hard to get it, and it's so cool that he's got it, but it's also making him a target because it's so it's worth so much, so valuable. So I kind of like that, and then that's kind of the thing that makes those fishermen double cross him.
Yeah, they lured him into a trap to try and steal his armor, and basically they use Baby Yoda as bait for this big fish monster that literally does swallow him inside of his little capsule for a good few minutes. And then, Mando, he jumps in and they cover the water up. So he jumped into the water trying to rescue Baby Yoda out of this giant fish monster's mouth, and they cover it up with a grate, and now he's kind of drowning in there. And it looks like he's not going to make it. And that's when 3 of the members from Death Watch show up and kick some butt and help him get out. But that was kind of cool. It was also one of those like they just happened to be out there. Like, what were they doing?
I have a theory.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is true, but do you remember when he lands on the planet? The planet's called Trask, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote down, it's like Waterworld. You remember that movie?
Yes. Kevin Costner.
But anyway, so when he lands on there, there's this one little scene where this person in a hood is looking at him, is kind of checking him out, like a woman that's under a hood.
Okay.
And it's almost like a Jedi-like look to the person. But when I was watching it the second time, I was like, oh, maybe that's one of the Mandalorians that they knew he was there.
That makes sense.
And maybe that's when they started to track him and figure out like, oh, we need to go encounter this guy. But yeah, so the Mandalorians show up, save the day, and there's just awesomeness happens all over the place. And so finally they take off their helmets, and that's when he kind of reacts. But we see it's Bo-Katan. And so we can go all the way back to the very end of the first season when Moff Gideon cuts his way out of the crashed TIE fighter with the Darksaber. And I don't know if most people probably don't even know what the Darksaber is. But in the Clone Wars and then in Rebels, the Darksaber is what the head of Mandalore, that's who the leader of Mandalore, the king or whatever, queen, will use. That's what they have. That kind of gives them political authority over in Mandalore. So when we last saw it in Rebels, then that was all the stuff that happened in Rebels. So when it shows up at the end, there were those of us who knew all that backstory, and so we were like, oh, they're going to bring back, like they're bringing back a lot of stuff with that. With just showing that Darksaber, and now Bo-Katan is looking for the Darksaber, and if for those of you who do not know why, is because she is the sister of the Queen of Mandalore. So there was a Queen of Mandalore in the Clone Wars, and she and Obi-Wan had a flirty thing, a little.
They did
kissy kind of. Now I don't know if they kissed. I don't remember, but they were definitely flirty. And she spoilers, but she's not around. So that's why this episode is called Eris, because Bo-Katan is kind of like the leader, the next in line to be leader. And so they're bringing all that in with this episode. That's why it's one of my favorites, because it's bringing all this stuff in. But I don't think you needed to know that to enjoy the episode at the same time. You know what I mean?
I sure didn't know that, and I definitely enjoyed the episode.
Yeah, right?
Caleb was providing me details afterward that just kind of filled it in. But they did a very good job of making it accessible to us Star Wars noobs.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's just good writing. Like to write an episode that's just good on its own, but then has all those deep cut kind of things to it for the nerds who, for their enjoyment, or all that sort of stuff. And so that's obviously in this episode, that's part of her goal. She kind of recruits the Mandalorian to be with her on this mission. By the way, she's got to save him twice. I mean, that's gotta be annoying. I mean, you got to save this guy twice before he finally decides.
Sure, I'll help you with your mission. Yeah. The mission's not an easy one either. They tell him, "Oh yeah, we're going to be invading or plundering this Imperial starship that's about to be taking off." But that's okay, because that's what we want. We want them to be kind of en route, because they couldn't. There was like a no wake zone for the spaceship leaving the water, so they had to take off slowly, which gave the Mandalorians time to fly up there with their jetpacks and get in. And I enjoyed this part of the episode with them coming in, but like with the way they cut back and forth between the Mandalorians attacking, and then the cockpit of the ship with like the pilot and then the commander there, where they're like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "I don't know. I think there's like 10 or 12 of them." And he's like, "Sir, there's only 4 life forms that I'm reading on here."
Very effective force. Yeah.
And they're like, "Well, how's it going? Can you handle the situation?" And then like a body just falls on the windshield and in front of them. And they're like, "Well, that can't be good." But yeah, so I like the way they cut back and forth, and they added a little humor in there, but also kind of like showed you how effective they didn't show you how effective they told through the character dialogue, and they showed through the action.
Yeah, like we got to see the Mandalorian kind of teamwork.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of a cool aspect. I mean, you saw the Mandalorians, like a lot of them come in the last season, and they kind of saved his life there on Navarro or whatever it was. But here you see what a small group of Mandalorians how they would act and react and work together. And I thought that was a really cool thing to kind of put in there. And just so everybody knows, we kind of skipped over it, but the deal that Mando makes is, if I help you with this mission, Bo-Katan knows of a Jedi. She knows where you can find one. And so that's the deal that he makes. And of course, I don't know if this happens every episode, but it seems like it happens a lot. Like somebody changes the deal on him, and he gets like really mad. Not really mad, but he gets really like annoyed. Like he's like, "Wait a minute. we had a deal.
Yeah.
It's kind of expected with just the regular folk, but that was startling when the Mandalorians kind of tricked him. It's like, oh, and then, that is not the way.
But then she threw his belief, his Mandalorian belief, in his face because he's like, you're changing the deal. And then she says, this is the way. And
that was a dick move.
She knows that he's going to basically have to respond to that, have to adhere to that. Like, okay, fine. But yeah, so she and the double crossing here where he's saying you're changing the plan is that they actually managed to get a hold of the weapons and the shipment that he was supposed to help him get. And then when that happens, the captain of the ship's like, oh yeah, well, good luck getting them off our ship. And then that's when Bo-Katan reveals like, oh no, we're taking your ship too. Like, we're not just here for the weapons, we're here for the ship. And then that's when Mando's like, hold up, that's not what I signed up for. And then of course we get some dialogue between the captain and Moff Gideon. And he's like, well, how much of the ship do they have? And they're like, well, they pretty much have everything, but they haven't gotten to the bridge yet. And he's like, well, I don't think we can help you out, buddy. We're not sending you any reinforcement. You know what to do for the Empire. Or what did he say?
It's for like the Empire? Long live the Empire.
Yeah, long live the Empire. That's what it is.
What it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, can we just mention really quickly the stupidity of that officer back in the cargo bay?
Right. Yes.
Like, oh, no. Capture him. Like, close him in. Close all the doors. And like, where did you close him in? Oh, all the controls.
Yeah. We
like, this dude graduated from some sort of academy. Like, you have to like have some sort of level of education to be an officer in the military. Right. Like,
if he could have bought his position, which was common in like sailing days, where you have uneducated sons of nobility trying to prove their way as officers on the ship without much or any idea of how ships work.
Yeah. So,
but I thought it also showed that the incompetency of the Empire isn't just limited to the stormtroopers.
Right. Yes, because right as he's like announcing that he locked them in the cargo bay control room and they're in the cargo bay, the doors open up and suck them all out. Which was pretty funny. I did enjoy that.
And so so then they go to take the ship, and the captain kills the pilots, and then they're going down. He's gonna
force a crash,
and they finally take the ship. They take the bridge, and Mandalorian, like, that's kind of why he's there. I mean, as a story reason, this is the part where and I saw a great meme that was like that showed how the stormtroopers aim, like with like normal, like our normal main characters, they can't hit them at all.
Right.
With like other civilians, they're like marksmen, but with like the Mandalorian, they're really good at hitting his armor. Like they don't hit any folds in his armor or any they don't hit any, but they're really good at hitting the actual armor,
which is a step up from mostly just missing. Like when Mando steps in, he gets shot quite a lot.
He does.
Quite a lot more than any other stormtrooper usually hits. But yes.
So, but he kind of not sacrifices himself, but he kind of puts himself a little bit more in harm's way to take the ship and to take the bridge. And then you have that scene between Bo-Katan and the commander where she's like, I know does he have it? And she's talking about the Darksaber. And so for those of us who know all the backstory, we know why she wants it is because this is a Mandalorian, and the Mandalorians made the Darksaber, by the way, because there was a war with the Jedi. The Mandalorians had a war with the Jedi back in the past, and so they made this Darksaber to fight the Jedi. And that's another reason why they have. Well, it depends on how far they go into what is canon anymore, because Kathleen Kennedy. They kind of changed a lot of that. But that's part of the reason why Beskar is they're covered in Beskar is because it protects them against lightsabers, that sort of thing. So anyway, there's a whole history behind there between what's going on. But again, like Katie said, like if you didn't know all that, it was still an awesome episode. You still like, this is awesome. Yeah, and then he goes and picks up the kid, and we get to see a tadpole at some point. Don't we get to see a tadpole? Isn't that the one?
Yes.
I was so scared it was gonna get eaten, but it didn't.
It didn't.
I like that. That was the most nerve-wracking part of this whole show so far.
Right. Well, the conversation he has with the child when he's dropping them off, he's like, "And mind your manners. You know what I'm talking about." It's like, we all know what you're talking about. Don't eat those kids.
and the frog lady, which by the way is her official title, the frog lady. That's her official title. Like, she doesn't have a name. She just says she's the frog lady. But they still don't know. They still don't get like, oh, didn't we have like 15 more of these?
She didn't count, or maybe she did, and just this was the toll she had to pay to get off.
I guess so.
Yeah. But I like how he kind of like disses her entire like species, but also her children. Like, he's like, congratulations, and then she's like, she kind of like offers one. He's like, do you want one? And he's like, no, I already have enough pets. It's like, you just called all her children pets.
Yep. And then it was funny, the fact that he paid all this money to get his ship fixed up, and it was basically like put together with wire or something.
Yeah, with fishing nets and all kinds of sea faring things. He's like, Mon Calamari.
Yeah, but that's good writing, by the way. It's good writing to kind of have that. They fixed the ship, but not really. Like,
yep.
Give your hero a little bit more to overcome. So that was good.
Yep. And so he's given the name Ahsoka Tano from Bo-Katan as payment for fulfilling his end of the deal. And now he also knows that he had like where she's at, that he has to go to Calodan, and that
Corvus, I thought, right? Corvus?
Oh, sorry. The city of Calodan on the forest planet of Corvus.
Yeah.
But
not yet.
Not yet.
Well, this is the season of side quests. This is the season where, in the beginning of the next episode, he's like, I don't think we're going to make it to Corvus. Maybe we got to. This is the season of side quests. Like, we can't just go there. We got to
his ship is not working. Which actually, pretty funny, the segue into chapter 12, episode 4 of season 2. This one was titled The Siege, but it opens up with Mando trying to lead the child through how to fix some wiring in this really narrow passageway in a ship. And he's like, just take the red wire and put it where the blue wire was and make sure you don't touch it. And then he's like, and he touches the wires and it all blows up. And he's like, yeah, this isn't going to work.
I have visions of having to direct Naomi how to unlock the car in case she ever gets locked in there, and something like that happening.
Did it cause anxiety?
A little bit, yeah.
Yep. It would cause me, with a kid that little, like you're saying.
Yep. And so it ends up, he's like, we're not going to make it. We should probably take a pit stop at Navarro again. So we're back at Navarro, which is good because we get to see Carl Weathers and Cara Dune again. Oh, I mean, Grief Karga and Cara Dune again.
It's good. Yeah, it's Carl Weathers. We can just one thing I like about this season, and I think we talked about it last episode, is that in the first season, we had his side quests be bounty hunter side quests, which was cool. But his character has now changed. Like, now his side quests are, he's going to help the frog lady. or now he's going to help. Like he's actually helping. He's doing good. Like he's actually. So the fact that there's been that growth in his character, I think is a really cool thing that they've done. Like instead of going back to being a bounty hunter again, like he's got friends. Like he was kind of a loner before, but now he's got friends, and he's got people that he can kind of count on and go back to, and they welcome him and they smile. It's not just like, like they're not intimidated by him. They're actually just friends. So I really like that about this season, is that, and you can see, because you kind of have that with Bo-Katan, where she's like, we're going to remember how cool you are. Like we're going to remember what you've done.
Yeah, she like offers him kind of a spot to just go like travel with them, basically. And she's like, the offer is still open if you ever need it.
So, we're not going to get it too much into obviously the next two episodes, but we kind of see this pattern where he's building more of a community. And that goes back to what I said in the last episode about the change in his character that Baby Yoda or Grogu or whatever has done for him, is that this changed his character. Now he's more for others. It's opened up his eyes to community, and maybe there's a different way of being a Mandalorian than I thought. That was because he says in that episode, he says, no, there's only one way. Like what do you mean this is the way? Like, no, and so he's having his thoughts and ideas challenged, but it's all because the Baby Yoda, the whole child issue is forcing him into these conflicts. And so I think it's that part of it is good writing overall, is that sort of pattern that I'm kind of seeing, at least.
Yeah. And I also do like that they're not just leaving some of these side quest characters or side quest planets. Like we're going back and we're seeing how things have changed even in the amount of time since Mando was last there. And this isn't the first episode where they've done that, but they do a good job here, showing Navarro being a lot more well put together. It's kind of becoming a thriving market. They've got trade going on. They've got, the leadership of Karga as magistrate, and then Cara Dune is now the marshal. So it's another marshal that we get to meet. She doesn't have cool Mando armor, but she does have her cool shock trooper armor.
Yeah.
But so they're kind of changing things around for good for the people, essentially. And they even say, like, one of the kind of the main missions of this episode is not for anyone in particular, but it's actually, he says, if we can get rid of the Empire's presence here in Navarro, then Navarro can become like the most popular trading city or planet, I guess, within the system there, and that can really open trade there in the Outer Rim area, and be a good haven for trade and for markets and for people to make money. So it's kind of this overall altruistic kind of thing. It's not like they have to go and save this one person or transport this one thing. It's more of a, hey, if you can help us get rid of the Empire here, it's going to do good for everyone.
Yeah, but we need to go back and talk about Baby Yoda and the snacks at the school.
Yes. Baby Yoda has now been eating in every episode. And
to some controversy.
Yes. Yeah, and you walk into this little classroom where they're being taught by a droid, which makes me think of the Pixar movie WALL-E, when they're all being like kind of taught by the computers. And anyways, it just makes me think of that. But yeah, so they drop off Baby Yoda there, and he first thing he sees is the kid next to him eating macaroons of all things, but I guess you're supposed to think they're space food. But yeah, there's these turquoise green macaroons. And he asks the kid, he like kind of motions for the kid, like, can I get one of those? The kid's like, And when he's not looking, he just Force grabs it and he's like, I got them now. And then he has them for the rest of the episode. Like he's snacking on them, which is great because at the very end, like one of the last thing he does is after they had this big old space battle, he throws up all the macaroons all over himself. This green goo comes out.
Mando's like, are you okay? And he's like,
I was like, I saw that coming. I've been with kids that eat and then spin around a bunch.
and I saw the Force thing happen. We saw the Force thing happen too, because the first time we watched it with the kids, we were all like, use the Force. Because when the kid wouldn't give it to him, we were like, you got to use the Force, man. He's got to use the Force with this.
Yep.
Did you have any favorite parts, Katie?
Yeah, I liked how lively the town was. And it was such a contrast from even, like, I don't know how the timeline works. Like, I thought he'd only been gone for, like, maybe a month. So it was a little bit of a drastic change, but it's cool seeing that evolution.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I mean, obviously, they did kind of a show don't tell thing with the school, right? They were like, hey, you'd be surprised. He's like, he's surprised it's still standing. And they're like, well, it's more than just still standing. So there's that sort of redemptive aspect, again, with that whole theme that I think is going through this season, is that there's this redemptive aspect of what he's a part of.
Showing that his actions have greater consequences and not just for the negative.
Good. Yeah. And not just for money or not just for whatever.
Yeah.
This was a very Clone Wars episode to me. We were watching it. The first time we were watching it, Mike and I were like, did Dave Filoni write this one? Because this is a Clone Wars episode. Like, you go to the base, you got to do this thing in the base. And, it's a very Star Wars thing, but it was also a very Clone Wars sort of.
You start off in the natives, like the locals.
Yeah.
So you talk to them, and then you go to the mission. Yeah, it's very Clone Wars. The only thing they were missing was the 1950s announcer at the front end.
At the front end, right.
Yeah.
The little catch-up, little intro thing. They brought the Mithril guy back, that green dude with the kind of the gills. I don't know. Maybe he's got gills. I don't know.
The fish man.
Yeah. And so they kind of bring him back. And that was really funny that when he sees Mando, it's like he farts or something. I don't know. Like, but like something comes of his gills
from
or
his
something.
Gills, yeah. And he's like, oh, yes. Mando's like, I'm surprised to see you here. He's like, yeah, likewise. You find
this
out
was the guy. This was the guy he put in carbonite in the first episode.
Yep. And you find out like he's working off his debt to Grief Karga, and that was why Mando had to go get him, was because he had been doing his books and had run off with some money or disappeared after some money had gone missing. And so that's why Mando had to go get him, was for Grief Karga. And now he has 350 years to work off his debt.
And it's kind of a running joke in the episode. He keeps like wanting the guy to do something. He's like, okay, I'll take 30 more years off or something.
Anytime something dangerous had to be done, they were sending him to do it. And he's like, I'll take 100 years off of your sentence. What do you think?
Yeah. So they're going to this base to basically destroy it. And the idea is, let's just overload the reactor. And so when they go to this reactor, they make the Mithril guy go out there, and it was very reminiscent of the Death Star tractor beam. He was like, why isn't there a railing out here?
There's just lava below.
It was very kind of tongue in cheek, and I thought it was very, very good. By the way, Carl Weathers directed this episode.
That's right.
And so we're talking about who directed it. And again, this was one of my favorite episodes. And again, it was a little more of a side quest episode, but the big reveal here, there's actually two, but the big reveal is that this isn't just a regular base. This was a lab, and they bring back Dr. What's his name?
Pershing.
Yeah. They bring back Dr. Pershing, and Moff Gideon is alive. Like, we know Moff Gideon's alive, but now everybody else knows he's still around.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a big thing. Like what were they doing? Like, we finally find out why they wanted the child, why they wanted Baby Yoda. Like, we finally find out what they were doing. They were using the blood to get some midichlorians and try to manipulate that.
Well, it sounds like they're trying to like merge it with people or beings, and it's not taking. And you do find out through a recording that they happen to be able to play from, I guess, the laboratory's logs, but that he has run out of his samples that he has, and so he needs more. So now we know more of a motivation as to why they want this Baby Yoda so bad, why they're trying to get him, is because they don't have any more of his samples, and they want to make some mutated midichlorian beings of some sort so they can take over the galaxy, I assume.
Yeah, they got to take over the galaxy again.
Right.
The Empire. And so just another sort of writing thing that they did in this episode was the urgency. That's a big thing when you're writing. It really helps with the tension and the movement of a story is if you give a time limit, right? And so they don't find out it's a lab. They kind of find out by accident, not by accident, but when they find out, they only have a few minutes before.
It's after they've already shut down the reactor,
shut everything down, and the lava and it's about to blow up. And Cara Dune, which I'm really liking her character. Like, I am really liking her character. I liked her in the last season, but I just the way whenever they bring her back, and she's got that great little scene at the beginning of this episode, by the way, where she's going down in the underground and she fights the dudes and she kind of makes friends with this little creature. I mean, it's such so fun.
Have you seen the meme where they show her with the little womp rat on her shoulder, and it's like drawn in a Disney princess?
It's not a womp rat. Womp rats are huge.
I'm pretty sure that's what this meme was saying it was then. But yeah, they were basically saying, like, this is how you know she is a Disney princess, because she has her little animal friend.
Her little animal. So there's the urgency. There's a sense of urgency here, but at the same time, they're trying to find out information, but they're interrupted. More stormtroopers. They got to go. And it just becomes kind of an action sequence then. I mean, we all knew they were going to come back to that Traxler Marauder, oh, look, it's the, oh, look, if you show the pistol, you're going to have to use the pistol or do something with the pistol later. Yep. Like, we all knew they were going to end up in that thing, and they crushed the Mythrol guy speeder. I mean, but man, that scene where they're coming, where the stormtrooper guys on the speeders are chasing them and they come off and they're going down the side of the mountain. It's such a cool visual.
Yes. I was not expecting the speeders to just dive over the cliff like that. And I was like, oh, apparently those can handle this steep, sheer incline. But it was pretty cool.
So, but that was a big reveal. That was a big reveal of the episode. And I think it's important that we understand finally what was so important about, Baby Yoda from the first season. And then we just have a really cool action sequence of, shooting things and chasing. And although, is it just me, or did it seem like when they looked at the map that the base was like super far away, but they kind of get back to the town really quickly, in my opinion? I'm like, I would have thought that would have taken a lot longer.
Right.
In Star Wars, because the planets are all single ecosystems, it's like a planet is the average size of, 10 city blocks. That's just how it goes.
It seems like that. It does seem that way in a lot of the Star Wars movies. They're like
one planet, one city, one environment.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And And they find things really quickly in Star Wars. Like there's like, oh well, there's got to be this thing on this planet, and they always seem to find it. Like you would think finding a temple or something on a planet would be, an ancient temple would be like really hard to do in a forest, but no, they seem to find it pretty quickly. Anyway.
Sorry, Katie, you were right. It's a meek rat.
Meek rat.
Swamp rats are a little smaller than 2 meters.
Red-eye lava meerkat.
6 feet. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently they can breathe fire too.
Oh, useful.
Yeah.
One thing I did like about this episode was the strong contrast between the city that's recovering from the occupation, and then you have this tan and kind of greenish color scheme going on there, and then the black and white and red of the lab.
Yeah.
You have your feel good at the beginning, and then it finishes with that gut punch of, oh crap, this is a lot bigger than what anybody anticipated.
Yeah.
So the visuals really bring that around too, as well as the dialogue and the action.
Yeah. Good call. Yeah. Well, Mando gets away with his jetpack, so they're kind of separated. And, long story short, his ship gets fixed really quickly. I mean,
right. It's just in the nick of time.
It took days with fishing wire, for the guys on the last planet, but these guys just fix it no problem. And he's, but it's, it's just a really cool Star Wars action scene, and they do a good job. And, there's movement to it and the back and forth. And so, but, then there's the puking by Baby Yoda. It's all very well done. But then what we see at the end is one of those mechanics was actually working for Moff Gideon. For the Empire. And they put a tracker on the ship. So now we know in the future, like, oh, Mandalorian doesn't know he's being tracked.
Right. And they confirm that he still has the asset, as they call it.
Yeah.
So now Moff Gideon, he knows for a fact Mando's got the child, and he's got a tracker on his vessel, his location. He's going to know wherever he goes in the galaxy.
And there was a great conversation at the end between that New Republic pilot and Cara Dune. I thought that was a great little moment.
Yeah.
For her character, and just to kind of show that there's other stuff going on out here. Like, we know there's other stuff going on out here, but we don't have the authority to really, we don't have the resources to really police this. And would you help us? I mean, like, it was kind of, and the fact that she was from Alderaan and all of her family, and who did you lose? I lost everybody. I mean, I just thought that was a really well done little kind of moment. And then they had the other big reveal. So any other thoughts before the last big reveal?
No, I mean, it was a nice little wrap up to this episode, even though they brought in some new big questions, or some big, at least for the characters. For us, we already kind of knew that Moff Gideon was alive, but for the characters, now they know, and now they know that stakes are even higher. But they kind of have this last little 5-minute wrap up scene where he gives her the little crest or whatever, which I don't know exactly what that means, but I guess that means she's like an official marshal now of the resistance, or what do they call it?
She's with the government now.
Yeah, she's with the government because she's got a medal. Yeah. But no, I think that was about. So what's the final reveal?
So the final reveal is, the Imperial officer who was talking with the spy alien guy.
Mm-hmm.
She goes to report to Moff Gideon, and he's standing there in front of Dark Troopers.
Troopers, yeah.
Again, for most people, they still enjoyed the episode, but for some of us, we went, holy crap. because there was this game long ago when Lucas was first putting out video games. LucasArts was putting out video games called Dark Forces, and you were kind of a rebellion kind of agent. Kyle Katarn was the name of the dude, and you were like, you went through all these levels, this video game, but the big thing was you were trying to stop the Empire from building this Dark Trooper.
Yes, and of course, I have vague memory of this game. I remember the cover for sure.
Did you play it?
I did. I know I have it on for PC.
Yeah, I played it on PC.
Yeah,
there was that game and like TIE Fighter and X-Wing. The space games are really fun, but in that with Dark Forces, you were this guy, and then you were kind of like a rogue kind of. It wasn't a Jedi thing, but the whole thing was, in the end, you end up fighting the Dark Trooper. So when they showed Dark Troopers, there were some of us who like just freaked out because we were like, oh my God, they're bringing in the Dark Troopers, which means at some point they're bringing in like that storyline, right? That means just like with the Darksaber, they're bringing in that whole Clone Wars Mandalorian storyline. It just makes us think, are they going to bring in Kyle Katarn? Because he ends up becoming a Jedi in one of the other video games, and they say that's canon. And so anyway, there's a lot of us online who are freaking out because we're like, if they bring in Kyle Katarn, we're going to freak out.
That's really interesting.
So, but again, like you said, Katie, like for most people, they just saw he had these kind of robot soldiers or whatever they were.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. Yeah. Dark stormtroopers, you probably aim a lot better.
We can hope.
Yes.
But that was the other thing, and I was very happy with that. I was actually really happy with that episode, other than the fact that it was kind of like a, hey, let's have a side quest, Baby Yoda, and Baby Yoda's like, sure. And that's what they do.
He's like, as long as I get macaroons. Awesome. Well, I think that pretty much wraps us up for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys are watching The Mandalorian as it comes out. I have some friends that I can't talk to because they're waiting till it all comes out, and then they're just going to binge it all over the Christmas break. But I've been talking with my friends and family, and we've been enjoying watching the episodes 1 week at a time. And there's something to being able to talk with different people for like a week about an episode and then getting to see the next part and knowing that everyone's kind of going through this growth, this transition of like, of going through the story together at the same time. And that we're all having to wait and question and ponder and try to think of the best fan fiction possibilities that could be happening or might be happening based on the other things that we know from games and books and movies. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. You missed that a lot especially with a lot of like Netflix releases and things like that. So hope you guys have been enjoying it the same way too. And if you guys have anything else you want to add? No? Well, as always, we hope you guys raise a glass to inspiration.
Yeah. It's evening here, and I have tea. I brewed tea.
Tea
which is kind of a throwback to, I think, the early days of Brew and
tea
Ink. It was originally tea and ink, but since we started to include other
throwback. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Good old tea and ink. So you guys enjoy your brews, raise that glass to inspiration, and stay inspired, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.